Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Jones again. This time I'm talking to my high school students. And we're picking up the conversation that we had last week when I was talking about heredity and genetics. Now, remember, when we're talking about heredity and genetics, we're really talking about the difference between our asexual and sexual reproductions and how that process will change the offspring and cause variations in a particular species. Now, again, from last week, if you recall, there are three main types of asexual reproduction. And again, when we're talking about asexual reproduction, we're talking about without egg and sperm interaction. The first one is binary fission, as I said last week. That's what we're talking about when we think about bacteria. The next is budding. That's what we would find with the hydra. Again, not the mythical beast, but the actual aquatic microorganism or single-cell organism. And then you have your flagella. Then you have your fragmentation. Your fragmentation you'll find in your starfish and your sea stars. Okay. Now, I also said asexual reproduction can actually occur in organisms that do carry on sexual reproduction, but only in certain cells. Remember, we said in body cells or somatic cells, we have this process called mitosis, where what we're going to be doing is making a copy of daughter cells from a mother cell. This week, we're going to talk about the flip side. We're going to be talking about sexual reproduction. And in sexual reproduction, again, we're talking about making another organism as a result of egg and sperm interacting. So, amphibians, mammals, human beings, all of us go through a process of sexual reproduction to get about offspring. So again, remember, asexual, somatic cells, mitosis, but meiosis, which is the sexual reproduction, will allow you to get an offspring from a mother and a father. Now, let's talk about what are the benefits of both, because there are some pros and cons depending on what you're trying to do. So if you're looking at sexual reproduction, first of all, sexual reproduction allows for high genetic variability. Here's what that means. You don't want every single plant to look the same. Here's why. If there's a disease that affects a certain plant and all the plants are the same, all the plants would die from the disease. Same thing with human beings. You wouldn't want a disease to come along where every human being is genetically susceptible to that disease, because then the entire species dies. So that's one reason that sexual reproduction is the more desired approach for getting offspring when you have a higher ordered life. Bacteria make millions and billions of copies of themselves, and they go through mutations a lot faster than human beings. So with bacteria, if you have a million bacteria of a billion colony of bacteria, then that million dies, no harm, no foul. Yeah, I'm saying this as a human being, not the bacteria who's. Now, one thing about it is it does facilitate adaptation, meaning if the environment changes because of the variation, parts of the species will change, and part of the species can survive that change. And it also, like it says, speeds up evolution. So what you find is that you'll get all of these different variations in a matter of generations, as opposed to having variations that occur longer and longer periods of time. But we're talking minor ones. We're not talking about like human beings having wings, but we're talking about like having two individuals that have like hazel eyes have a child that has blue eyes. Okay? Now, when you look at some of the advantages of asexual reproduction, first of all, it saves energy. You do not have to expend as much energy if you're just making copies. It's literally like a copy machine, as opposed to actually writing a unique or an original document. Next, you find that courtship is not an issue. I don't need a mate because I can just make a copy of myself. I'm going to just leave that right there. And then finally, you have the greatest ability to increase the fitness for each individual. So what we're talking about with the fitness is if one organism can survive an environment and it makes a copy of itself, then that other organism can survive an environment. But with sexual reproduction, there are times when you could have two healthy individuals and they produce an offspring that has an anomaly or has a disease. Okay? So, disadvantages. Well, first of all, sexual reproduction, it costs. You gotta pay to play. Everybody knows that. Any guy out here who has a girlfriend knows. As soon as you get a girlfriend, you go broke. Quick. Yep, dating ain't cheap. Next, courtship. Takes time and takes resources. Again, I'm just saying, love don't come free. Don't care what anybody tells you. Love ain't free. And then the last one is, there's usually a sacrifice of fitness for one species to another. So what you find is that, like I said, there are times when you could have two healthy individuals that will produce an offspring that, because of the variation in genetics, could be susceptible to something that the two parents are not susceptible to. Case in point, I'm not allergic to nuts. My wife's not allergic to nuts. I have two kids that are allergic to nuts. Go figure. Now, asexual reproduction, some of the downsides. First of all, low genetic variability. Like I said, if you have a disease that affects or targets a genetic disposition, meaning genetic makeup, everybody with that makeup will die. Well, if every plant or every bacteria or every whatever has the exact same genetic makeup, then all those organisms become susceptible and die. All right, next one. Adaptation to environment is difficult. Well, here's why. If you have an organism who is specific for a certain environment and you drastically change it, then what you actually are doing is causing that organism and all the organisms that came from it to not be able to survive. Okay? That's one reason why, like, at times bacteria can be easily killed by changing their environment. You can make it either too hot or make it too cold. Okay? And then it retards evolution. Retard actually means to slow down or to stop, okay, or to hamper. That's what the word actually means. And so when you're talking about making copies after copy after copy, you're going to slow down that process. Now, you may think, well, why would you want to slow down evolution? Well, think about it like this. I have skin on my hand. I would not want a cut to occur and all of a sudden I have some kind of new patch of skin in the mess of all of this. Or I wouldn't want like half my eye to be brown and then the other half of my eye to be blue, because then you get all kinds of light sensitivity issues. Okay? And yes, folks who have lighter color eyes sometimes tend to have issues with bright light. Okay? So let's talk about the process of meiosis. As I said, meiosis is a process in which you have one cell actually becoming four, but the main thing is that you're taking the genetic information in this one cell and you're breaking it up, you're dividing it. You're taking a deck of cards and saying, okay, although I have 52 cards here, I'm going to deal you out 13, you out 13, you out 13, you out 13. All right? Everybody has 13. Okay? Now, there's two processes that occur in meiosis, whereas mitosis is one. But the idea is, as we go from here, which is the parent cell with everything in it, to here, the daughter cells, not only do you decrease the amount of genetic information, but you also alter it such that you don't get an identical copy of what you started out with. Now let's talk about that. This process of creating new chromosomes. All right? Imagine this. Imagine I had a deck of cards that are red, deck of cards that are blue. I take the deck of red, deck of blue, shuffle them together, and then deal out cards. Some people will get more red, some people get more blue, some people get the exact same amount. Same thing. With meiosis, you start out with your parental chromosome. Basically, exactly what you got from your mom and dad. You can go down two paths. One, in which you don't cross over, which means you will get either one of your dad's chromosomes or one of your mom's chromosomes, or you can have crossing over occurring, and then you get a blend. You could have one of your dad's chromosomes. You could have one of your mom's chromosomes. You could have one of your mom's chromosomes with some of your dad's chromosomes, or some of your dad's chromosome with some of your mom's chromosome. So, what you find is that's where the variation comes into play. Okay? Now, let's talk how this happens. So, when I was younger, I actually spent a little time in Washington, D.C. And I remember the first time I was there, and this is high school, I wanted to get from point A to point B. I wanted to get to school, basically. And my parents said, hit the metro. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to get on the metro. So I get there and I see this map. I'm like, what the heck is this? Well, here's the deal. I used to live in Bethesda, so I'm on the red line, right? Where I had to go to school was way down here, Southern Avenue. It's the green line. So I'm like, the red don't get to the green line. That's when my dad said, son, you see these big circles? Those are crossover spots where literally you can get off of one metro, which is a subway, and get on another one. So I'm like, pow! So I started doing that a couple of times, and then I got real good at it. Because here's what I mean. I was in high school, had a little girlfriend. She lived off of the blue line. She would get off here at Smithsonian, and then she would like catch a bus or something like that. Now, if you notice, I gotta go from here to here. So here's what I would do. I would get on the green line. I said, look at babe, we're gonna get off on the blue. I get off on the blue, then take the blue around. She gets off. I get back on the red. I get back home. Still got from point A to point B with a little bit of a detour. Chromosomes can do the exact same thing. But instead of calling it a change or a transfer station, we call it crossing over. Look at this. So, imagine you have two chromosomes. Mom's chromosome, dad's chromosome. Dad's chromosome throws a leg on over to mom's chromosome. Mom's chromosome throws a leg on over to dad's. So at this one spot, okay, which is called chiasma, these two chromosomes switch. And what happens is now you have a straight line of dad, but then you have about 70% dad, 30% mom. Then on this side you have straight leg of mom, but then you have 70% mom, 30% of dad. So you can see how depending on which chromosome you get, you can look more like your father, you can look like your father with a little bit of your mother, you can look like your mother, or you could look like your mother with a little bit of your father. Now, imagine this happening multiple times. So if you look at this, here, again, think of this as dad, think of this as mom. In this, once you have crossing over, because it can happen multiple times, you have this chromosome. Okay, so you have a little bit of the red, a little bit of the green. All right? You look at this one. You have orange, then yellow, then back to orange. Look at this one. Yellow, then orange, then back to yellow. This one, green, and then red. So remember when I jumped off the metro line, took another route, jumped on a new metro line? That's what it looks like. So this is how you get your variation. But let's go a little bit deeper. What does all of this mean? How is this going to be asked on a test? What is it that I need to know about this? Well, then, got to go to my old buddy, Punnett Square. Now, here's the deal with Punnett Squares. It's really a way of being able to ask the question, what if? Here's what I mean. The Punnett Square has you to take your mom's genetic information and your dad's genetic information and say, okay, if you get this chromosome from your mom and this chromosome from your dad, what would you look like? Well, what if you get another chromosome from your mom and this other chromosome from your dad? What would you look like? So in this case, you notice we have big B's and little b's. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Big B's mean dominant. That means you're going to see me no matter if I'm alone or if I'm with a group. You have friends like that, you already know it. This is recessive, little b's. The only way you'll see a little b or a recessive trait is if the dominant trait is nowhere to be seen. So you know how you have those friends that are real cool when it's just you and them, but you invite that third person and then they get brand new? Recessive. All right. Now, there are two types of genetic traits. And I want to talk to you about this because sometimes people get confused because they're like, okay, well, my dad's 6'5", like my dad. My mom's 5'2", like my mom. Why I'm not 6'5" or 5'2"? Yeah, I came out like 5'10" 3/4 on a good day. I may be able to, hit 5'11", 5'12", which is the same thing as 6 feet, but it is what it is. Here's why. Certain traits are monogenetic. Mono. One, genetic, gene. So here's what we're talking about. It's like a light. It's either on or off. So if you're looking at this flower, this is monogenetic. You're either going to be purple or white. Nothing in between, no lavender, no periwinkle, none of that other stuff that are in the box of 64. Nah, we're dealing with the straight 8. All right? Then you have polygenetic. This is like eye color. Because here's what you'll find. Although, yeah, we have a large dominant gene and we have a small recessive gene, depending on the combination, depends on what you get. So in this scenario, you have two parents that have hazel eyes, okay? Think of hazel as just a light brown. They can potentially have a child that has everything from a dark chocolate brown, almost black, to sky crystal blue. Why? Because eye color is controlled by more than one gene. It's not on and off. It's like a dimmer, okay? You can get the full clip or nothing at all, and everything in between, okay? So, let's talk specifically about alleles, which are these, the Punnett Square, and how we're going to ask questions about this on tests. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, when you're looking at your genetic traits, first of all, you get some from your mom, you get some from your dad. And depending on if they're monogenetic, it'll be on and off, or polygenetic, where it's like a dimmer. And you can get anything from light to very, very dark. I hope this helps you guys, and I'll see you next time.